Hello, I'm Vicki Haddock, Authentic Leadership Coach, and today I'd like to welcome you to my new series, which is Coaching Conversations with my client, Emma. Emma and I have been working together for a little over 2 years, and we began our conversations supporting her around her role at work, and those conversations eventually evolved into topics around parenting, transitions, and healing from the past. So often our conversations reflected topics that are on the minds of so many that I speak with. And I always was just feeling like, wow, if we could just capture these conversations and others could listen in, what an impact it would make. And eventually, Emma and I agreed to record our conversations. And we hope it's our combined desire that they are a service to those who find their way here and listen to these recordings. They are audio only to maintain Emma's privacy. However, other than that, we've really worked to bring you very typical, transparent, and authentic coaching conversations. I want to thank Emma for being willing to share her life in this way. And it's our hope that you will be inspired and encouraged to make some needed changes in your own life because of these conversations. Now, let's listen in.
Hmm. Well, welcome to our first January 25 conversation.
Nice to be here, as always.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What's it feel like settling into a new year for you?
So, something that I have been tuning into more intentionally is living by the energies of the seasons,
Mm,
while also honoring that, like, yes, this is a new year. So, how can I go into the new year with grace for honoring this like time of rest and energy conservation, but also like, yes, it is a new year. So, I set an intention for the year. And my intention is I am at ease
mm,
and I create space in my life to thrive.
mm,
And I also, this is something that like I know that I need in my life to quite just to make space for something greater. This feels like one of the missing puzzle pieces for me.
mm,
And I find myself frequently butting up against this intention where I'm like, you know what, I'm not living it. Like coping mechanisms from that my nervous system has developed that I say need to overcome, find new patterns like scrolling on Instagram. And it's like I could and at the same time feeling like I don't have enough time. It's like, oh, I'd love to create these rituals in my life, but I feel like I don't have the time. So the thing that's kind of in my head right now is how do I make space and invite this ease in my life to and maybe it's there's nothing else in that sentence, but like, but also maybe to invite other things in.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of like when your closet is stuffed full of clothes, you have to clean it out and move some on to another home before you have space to put an upgraded new wardrobe in it.
Absolutely. Yes, that is a
Yeah,
perfect analogy.
yeah. You just went through a transition process at the end of last year of cleaning out a physical space that you had lived in for a lot of years.
Yes.
and moving to a new space and reorganizing things. Um, and I think about when we're looking at questions like this, we can take lessons when we look at our physical world, emotional world, mental world, and spiritual world. When we can learn a lesson from either direction, right? So when you think about creating space and ease right now, which one of those worlds is it in, or is it maybe more focused in than another?
I think it's very most like right now, what's at the forefront for me is the mental and
Mhm.
emotional spaces. My
Mhm.
physical space, while not perfect, is feeling pretty spacious and like
Mhm.
like it's meeting my needs.
Yeah.
And I'm still in the like baby stages of my spiritual space that it doesn't feel overcluttered. It feels very
Yeah.
exciting and new, I think is the best way to put that.
Okay. Awesome. I like that. So let's think about for a minute the physical transition you went through to make that space, that greater ease that you're feeling in your new space right now. What was that transition like? If you could kind of just break it down to high level decisions you had to make along the way to do that.
So it was very much a evaluation of is this thing meeting my needs to decide whether it came with us or not.
Hmm.
And like, even if it is meeting our needs, do we even have the space to put it somewhere? Can it physically fit in the new location? So, and like, do I even want this anymore?
Yeah. But let's back up a little bit further than that because before you could even get to that space, you had to decide that you didn't want to live in the space you were in anymore. And there had to be a strong enough motivating reason to leave that space to get to a new one. So let's go back to there. What was there?
It was a it was a slow decision of realizing that the location that we were living in didn't meet the needs of our family now and in the future. And it was I mean, that really hit home. It was extremely motivating to make space.
Yeah. And in very many real ways, you have made that space now so that you can now begin to make space in these other worlds. I think you had to sort through some mental and emotional things also to do that. Like, right, you were weeding some things out, a lot of things along the way, mentally and emotionally to do that. So
Absolutely.
we could say even that you have created more mental and emotional space and capacity through this physical change versus where you were.
I completely agree. I am a different human being in my mental and emotional world than I was after this transition.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's go back to the detail. Once you made the decision, you had the motivating factor, then you had to start the kind of tedious process of sorting. And what was that process? Let's think about it at a high level. Like, what was sorting about?
The sorting was, do I want this? Do I need this? Is it meeting a need? And can we physically move it into a space that exists?
Yeah. Okay. So let's take these ideas now into the greater space you want to take emotionally and mentally in the days ahead, the greater ease that you want to invite into this year. What's the, if you think about back to that motivating reason to do this, what's important for you about
I am tired of rushing around. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel stable to constantly be on edge and like feeling like I need to run around to meet what feels like my daily needs and my family's daily needs. So that is very motivating for me to solve this in
it?
some way.
Mhm. What's on the other side of that? If you solve that and you and life moved at a little bit more intentional, slower space, what does that open up?
I want to believe that it opens up a space of joy, curiosity, connection for the people that I care about, myself included. Like, I'm gonna put
Yeah,
myself first on that one because
yeah.
this whole journey has shown me like I have put myself at the bottom of the list to meet other people's needs my whole life. And I'm tired of that.
Yeah, well, quite literally, when we put other people's needs first, it makes us tired.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So you have some strong motivating reasons to move into this space, to open up, to invite in something new. That's maybe not even totally defined, but there's a pull towards that something new. Let's think about then the sorting process. How could you take the sorting process that you went through physically and apply it now to this space that you're in now?
Off the cuff, I see two categories of things that I do in my life. It's the things that I need to do. And even that could possibly be evaluated, but the things that I feel like I need to do, and then the things that I want to do.
Mhm.
And then there's the things that happen because we're robots moving through life sometimes. And we
On
allow
autopilot. Mhm.
autopilot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those are the three categories that I see. And for an example, cleaning the kitchen is a thing that I feel like needs to happen. Laundry, generally keeping the house tidy enough. Things that I want to do. I want to play video games. I want to crochet. I want to pull tarot cards in the morning. Things that happen on autopilot. I put the kids to bed and I look at some Instagram reels for 10 minutes to escape because that was a marathon.
That scrolling on Instagram is serving some purpose in the moment, right? It's allowing you to balance out from the energy that you just put into putting the kids to bed. So there's a way in which our brain, we have that analytical task oriented side of our brain, but then we have this daydreaming creative side of our brain. And both are valid, right? Both need an outlet, and they act as a counterbalance to each other. So what is needed, let's just talk for a moment about the specific thing. What is needed for you after you've maybe had some intense activity with your family? There is, I hear, a need to allow yourself some space of creativity and rest. And maybe the more present we are with those choices is we think about, is scrolling on Instagram the best way to meet that need in that moment?
You've really hit the nail on the head on this one. This is the thing that like, you put into words the feeling that I've been had, like having like, yes, I can do this. And I don't feel super great after I've eaten like junk food for the brain. And I've lived in social media. Like that's not what that's not intentional. I want to be intentional about that space. And I
Yeah.
do think that you're right that that need for space is a need
Mm-hmm.
after these kinds of things. And now I'm thinking
Yeah.
perhaps what I need to do is make a menu of choices that I can make intentionally in those moments
Mm-hmm.
and like actually like list them out. And maybe I don't look at it every time, but I know it exists. If I need a refresher of things that I can do that don't feel like a chore and something that I should do,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't
And it
want to
needs
go
to be
back on that.
something easy, something that you don't have to be, analytically task oriented around, and something that's joyful for you.
Yes, all of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about what would meet that?
Because I have so many things that I want to do, a lot of them I have to make a choice on things that just don't happen. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
read, crochet, and play video games in the same night. But I
Mm-hmm.
could read for 10 minutes after I put the kids to bed, cozy up, have a little
Mm-hmm.
read sesh, and that actually would feel really, really good and joyful
Mm-hmm.
instead of picking up my phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could meditate. I love meditating. It's I I feel like I don't have enough time to meditate. That would be a really great way I think it would be a great way to shift my brain into a more calm, joyful state.
Yeah. It'd be allowing your body and mind a space to settle in the moment.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking of
Mm-hmm.
other places where it's like, where do I, because I feel like this all fits together because I'm looking for more ease. So, how do
Mm-hmm.
I intentionally recognize when I need ease and then
Mm-hmm.
not having to think about what I can do in those moments to intentionally set that ease?
Mm-hmm. And that's where autopilot works in our favor, right? So autopilot is kind of a beautiful gift that our brain does, because if we had to focus on everything we did, it would be absolutely exhausting and draining. So when you can intentionally be creating ways that help you to automatically move towards joy,
What
that's
a
a beautiful
gift.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's this is everything I've wanted. Because I truly I felt stuck of like I didn't I didn't know how to get from I'm on autopilot doing things that I don't want to do to I'm on autopilot doing things that I do want to do. But that's still,
Yeah.
I think the missing piece was like allowing myself that and understanding that that space is actually important to,
Yeah, because I think that when we first began to talk about it, I sensed a sense of judgment against yourself for wanting to scroll on Instagram.
yes, very much
Yeah.
so.
And that judgment then just adds exhaustion. Like you needed the break, you needed the space, but now you judge and it adds an extra layer of pressure. And then it can almost negate the relaxation that your body and mind was needing in that moment because the judge comes in and judges when we can recognize, no, it really genuinely is a need to decompress, to, move into a little bit slower pace. Um, then we can honor that need, but we can be intentional to choose how we meet that need.
I'm realizing that I still have the needs of a toddler. I need transition phases. I need I need to go from one thing to the next. I need a smooth transition activity to get my body and my brain and my nervous system in line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe that's just a need of a human being, and we see it more clearly in toddlers.
Yes. Yes.
I talk to so many people who go on back to back to back, video meetings all day long.
That's me.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that for a minute because when we do that, number one, it's exhausting. So visually being engaged with a video screen is a higher level of mental exhaustion because our brain is having to map something that is one dimensional into a three-dimensional something. So when I'm looking at you on this screen, my brain's having to do some extra layers of processing to convert that image. So that Zoom fatigue or that digital screen fatigue is very, very real. And so when you think about ways of gaining energy back, it's even thinking about how do I navigate those meetings? Do I take them all on video? Or there's some that can be audio only? Because interestingly enough, audio is a little bit more effective than video when it comes to digital meetings. Um, I don't know what do you have a pattern of how you do your meetings?
I do, and I can tell you right now, it does not work for me. And so I'm curious what you think. So
Mhm.
I work with folks halfway across the world. We are 6 hours
Oh,
apart. So all of my meetings are pretty much front loaded into my day, and they're back to back to fit them all in. I have
mhm.
tried different techniques of like spacing them apart. Like, and said this isn't a weekly meeting, it's now a bi-weekly or every 2 week meeting to create more space in my calendar. Those
Mhm.
spots seem to just fill up with other things. So it's exhausting. I try to end meetings 5 minutes early, but things happen, and I'd quite frankly rather prioritize forming relationships with these people. And yeah, it goes 5 minutes. It goes the whole time. I'm curious if you know anything about walking during meetings, even if the video is on. Does that have a, is that as exhausting or is that helpful?
Hmm. I don't know any science behind that, but I'm curious, have you experimented with that?
I have walked during meetings and I don't know if I've noticed a difference, but I haven't been paying attention either.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this would be where you can begin to do that sorting process. Let's go back to talking about the sorting process. So when we're thinking about, okay, we have to have block of meetings every day. This is something that I've been working with very realistically in my world because in the last quarter of 2024, I had the busiest schedule that I've kept with uh, you know video meetings and coaching connections. And I found cognitively being impacted by that, and visually, where I think it's a visual thing that leads to some cognitive processing, and then just also being a growing depletion over time during that space. And so as I looked at those, again, I think this goes back to something you talked about before. You have been used to putting everybody else's needs above your own. And when we schedule and allow back to back to back to back meetings in our world without prioritizing time in there for our or doing it in a way that meets our needs, um, we are again choosing another level of serving others over ourselves. And typically, I think on the surface, people say, well, that's what I have to do my job. And when I get down into the nitty gritty of it, that's not what we have to do our job. It's what we're choosing. It's what we think we should do to do our job. And we've created a lot of stories around that. But there's, ways in which we are making that choice. It's not somebody forcing that choice on us.
No, you're
So,
absolutely right.
yeah,
It is
well,
a
I'll pause
choice.
yeah.
It is a choice, and it's a choice that and it's always a story. And I think it is a valuable exercise to go through my calendar and say, no, I am intentionally choosing to leave this space between meetings. I'm intentionally choosing to make this one audio only. I have found that when we have big, like team, like corporate meetings, I will do something creative with my hands and I can
Mhm,
listen better.
mhm.
I actually take on more because I am not multitasking. I'm not trying to do work at the same time. My hands are busy, so my brain isn't, because what I'm doing is mostly meditative.
Yes, and so
So,
you're able to take that in and allow all that information in at a deeper level.
yes.
Great,
So
great
I
point.
think that I do think that forcing heavy quotations myself to reevaluate my schedule is a worthwhile adventure. And then also making a menu of things to do in between meetings that aren't work related to build up, to kind of stop the depletion from
Hmm.
happening and
Yeah.
intentionally filling my space with more. Because that is not what I want to do.
Hmm. So thinking about what sustains your energy during the day, like what are the things that, like, we physically need a time to go to the restroom. We need a time to take a glass of water. We need a time to take food in and to do what's necessary to either prepare that food or move away to get the food. However, you're getting your food. There's a need to have food that actually energizes us instead of depletes us, which is a whole nother topic.
Yes.
Um, but finding all of those things, we have a need for sleep. We have a need for a good night's sleep, which sets us up to be able to, move through a day with greater ease. So it there's many different factors that when we can be more present with how each of those things impacts us, we can then begin to sort in a better way. So let's just go back to, like, I had a super busy fourth quarter of 2024. And I realized about the first week of December that I had to shift something with my schedule. But I wasn't able to do that until January because December was booked pretty solid. So in January, I shifted my schedule so that I'm protecting a block of space for my food and nutrition needs during the day. And it's a block of space enough for me to be able to prepare the food that is nourishing to me. Um, in mid-October, I spent a week with my friend in Merida, Mexico. And one of the things I thought was really super fun with being with her for that moment is, you know, in that part of Mexico and their culture, which I find differs and, you know, a little bit, each part is a little bit differently, but they're used to taking a 2 hour time block during the middle of the day, which allows you to go to your house, prepare your food, see your family, and then go back and engage in your work again. And that allows people to be nourished, have their connections, and head head back to their to do what they need to do. It's a different rhythm. And I thought, man, that is really inviting to me to create space for that in my day. And so I didn't allot myself 2 hours in there. I don't need 2 hours to do that, but I did allot a space in there to do that. And I also had to think about overall, I need to reduce my number of obligations. Like, it's not reasonable for me to have, to expect myself to do, 8 conversations 5 days a week. That's just absolutely not reasonable. So I have to adjust my expectations to what is reasonable. And I have to deal with maybe the fear that comes up from doing that, or the what am I going to miss out on if I do that. And I have to be okay that when I'm meeting my needs first, it's also going to contribute to meeting the needs of others more.
Feel this so much. I recently signed up for a 4-week course. It is a uh, yoga astrology workshop to heal inner wounds. And it means that I'm missing dinner every Sunday for 4 weeks. And I was like, I'm going to do this because it is going to not, I'm doing to do it for me. And it is going to make my connections with the people that I care about that much more. And it was so hard to be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. People are going to be mad at me, and that's okay. So I'm just going to embody that energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Describe that energy. When you say I'm going to embody that energy, what does that mean to you?
The energy that my needs matter, that I am worthy of coming first. I am worthy of love, self-love first and foremost. And then I matter.
Let's go back to where we started about creating greater ease in your world. How do the two tie together?
I think first and foremost, ease is serving me. It is serving, it is soothing my nervous system. And the tools to intentionally choose and serve autopilot will create that space for something new, something that I am intentionally trying to invite into my life. And I think it all goes back to that spiral or like spiral staircase of next level. Like, this feels like the thing that will invite that next level in that spiral staircase.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I have talked about that spiral staircase before, and really the essence and the meaning of that is we face similar things in our life, but at different levels or different versions of it. So just like you face the task of creating space through physically moving, now you're coming around that spiral to do that same thing, but from a slightly new perspective.
That's a really, I think, poignant observation of what I am going through. And I'm sure it will continue to happen in other aspects of my life.
Well, it is the ongoing journey of life. I think we're just an ongoing evolution of of that spiral, which is kind of cool place to be. So, what's landed for you today? What's different from you for you now going away from this conversation?
I feel like I have the tools that I need to be intentional about how I set my time and identifying areas where it's important for me to rest and not having that judgment because I didn't even recognize that judgment in me until you pointed it out. And I do think that I had a lot of judgment of like, no, I should just put the kids to bed and then immediately start cleaning the kitchen because that's what I should be doing. No, it shouldn't. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Judge sneaks in there in subtle little disguises.
Really does.
Mm. Does feel like a good place to wind out today?
It sure does.
Yeah. Well, next time when we check in and come together, it'll be interesting to see how you've implemented these tools and what difference that's made for you um, in that next couple weeks. So,
I fully intend on like listing out, like writing it all down and like categorizing things and saying like this is where I need space and this is what I'm going to do in these times so that because quite frankly, I get decision fatigue in my life and
mhm.
I need to get rid of it. I need to be like these are your choices. Do one of those.
Yeah. Decision fatigue is real. And that's again going back to simplifying our life is sometimes about just simplifying the way that we make decisions.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But we could venture into a whole new topic for a whole nother time around that. Okay. Thanks for being here for this conversation today
Thank
and for
you.
being willing to share the vulnerable spaces that are they're sometimes not easy to talk about, but we benefit so much when we're able to make those adjustments. So
One of the greatest gifts that you've given me is calling me out when I'm telling myself a story. Sometimes it's just really helpful to have an outside perspective of like, I don't know about that one.
it's either easier to myth bust from the outside because
Yeah.
we get really used to the stories we tell ourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being along until the end of this conversation today. We'd love to have you as a regular listener, so please hit the subscribe button and like this video and check back for the next episode in my conversations with Emma. In the meantime, I'd love to hear what resonated with you most. Leave a comment. and I'll look forward to hearing what sparked in you during this conversation. Also, feel free to share this with a friend, and we appreciate you being along in helping us to bring inspiration and hope and healing to all those who listen. So take care and have a beautiful day.